Hello there, students of Marmara. I don't get to see you. Becca and I were planning on maybe doing some storytelling from the United States to all of you in Turkey, but that's not happening this year. But I am making some recordings for you, and I hope you enjoy them. This first one today is going to be called The Monster Who Grew Small. It's an old Egyptian folktale, and I hope you enjoy it. You should also, afterwards, after you see it, there should be an option to make comments. Please feel free to do that or pass them on through Becca. She's been a very good friend of mine for many, many years, and I know you are all lucky to have her as a teacher, and I know she loves having you as students. Without further ado, The Monster Who Grew Small. The story is The Monster That Grew Small by Aaron McEmrys. This story could have happened a month ago. It could have happened 1,000 years ago, but it was a while ago, far, far from here. The Monster That Grew Small. A young man named Niobe lived in the small village with his uncle and many other people. But he loved his uncle. He admired his uncle so much because he was a brave warrior. Everyone looked up to him for the courage and how he led his people. Niobe wasn't like that. In fact, Niobe, if you translate it, means scaredy cat. And he was known as a scaredy cat because he was afraid of everything. The loud noises that came out of the forest. He was afraid of the roar of the lions and the cheetahs and all kinds of things. He wasn't even sure what he was afraid of. He was afraid of the spiders that he never even saw. Unfortunately, one of the jobs he had was to go into the forest once or twice a week and collect water for the villagers. He didn't have to go too far in, but the river ran along the edge. So one day he was going, trying to be as brave as he could, and he heard sounds, and he was at the water, and he couldn't wait to collect the water and get back to the village where he thought he was safe. But then he heard something deep in the forest, in the scariest part of the forest. And it was a cry. It was like, "Help me, help me." Now, Niobe didn't know where it was coming from, but he knew he had to go. So he started going deeper into the forest. It was dark, and he started hearing other noises too. And he finally got to where the help me was coming from. And there was a rabbit caught up in some vines, some creepers. And Niobe thought, "Oh, I've got to help her." And he goes over and he carefully helped the rabbit out and make sure she wasn't hurt. He had been so nervous, and he was breathing hard, and the rabbit looked at him and goes, Oh, young man, you must be so brave to come into this dark forest all by yourself to help me. Thank you so much." "Oh, no. I'm not brave at all," said Niobe. "In fact, I'm known as the frightened one in my village, and I'm a little too scared and not very strong. I don't know if I could help you too much, but if you want, I could pick you up and take you home and make sure you're safe." "Oh, Niobe, that won't be necessary, but I thank you. You see, I live very, very far from here. I live up there in the moon, and you cannot go there with me, I know. But I want to give you something. I want to give you something to say thank you for what you've done and for helping me. What is it that you want most in the entire world?" Niobe didn't have to think long. He knew what he wanted. He says, Oh, rabbit, I want courage. I want to be brave like my uncle." Rabbit thought about that for a while. He said, "Well, Niobe, I can't give you courage, but I can show you where to find it. The road is long, and you have to go by yourself. And if any time along the way you are frightened and you're thinking about turning back, look up at the moon and know that I am there, and I am looking after you always." And with that, the rabbit just disappeared. Niobe said, "I'm going to do it. I'm going to go and follow the path and get my courage." and he started off. It was a long journey, and after several days, he came to a very strange town. It was a noisy town, and as he entered, there were people running everywhere, and they were screaming and crying and looking over their shoulder. Cats and dogs were going everywhere. There were people hiding under garbage cans and up in trees and under bushes and under beds and closets. And one man's running by crying, and he said, sir, what's going on? He goes, why is everyone so frightened? He goes, well, wouldn't you be frightened too, young man, if you were going to be eaten by a monster? A monster? Said Niobe. Yes, it's a huge, fire-breathing monster with the head of a humongous crocodile and the body of a gigantic hippopotamus and the tail of a long, slithery snake. And the fire that comes out of his mouth could burn up an entire village. Niobe was, where is this monster? He says, he's up there in that cave. And then with that, the man ran away. Niobe looked at where the man had pointed. It was exactly where the moon rabbit had told him he had to go to find his courage. Niobe was scared again. He was like, well, if I go up there, I might get chopped up into bits or burned by fire or eaten, or all three. Then again, he looked up at the moon and remembered what the rabbit had said. I'm going to face that monster and defeat him. And Niobe started up the trail. And as he went up, he didn't have to go too far. And he saw the monster, just as the man had described, fire coming out of its crocodile head. And he went up further and further. And all of a sudden, he let out a large roar. The monster. And fire came out. Niobe was like, oh no. And he started running back down the hill. He was so scared. And he looked over his shoulder. And he slowed up and stopped running. And thought about something he had just observed. As he was going up the hill and got closer to the monster before, the monster looked a little smaller. But as he was running further away from it, it seemed even bigger. How could that be? Niobe took a deep breath and decided nothing was going to stop him. He was going to get up to that cave and see that monster. And he closed his eyes and he started running as fast as he could so he wouldn't lose his courage or whatever he had to for himself. And he got up there and opened his eyes. There was nothing there. He had just seen him. Where could this monster have gone? He was so big. Just at that moment, Niobe felt something warm, almost hot on his ankle. And he looked down. There was the monster. Head of a crocodile? Yes, but like, body of a hippopotamus? Yeah, but like, tail of a snake? Not much. He was like, he looked down at the monster again and thought, wow, he's so cute. He was blowing smoke rings and looking up and smiling. He couldn't help himself. And Niobe reached down and he picked up the monster. And he looked him in the face and he says, monster, are you lonely up here? You want to come home with me? He says, okay then. And he put the monster on his shoulder. And Niobe proudly walked down back to the village where everyone had been so afraid. They were astounded. They looked at Niobe and the monster and they thought, this is miraculous. The monster's not so scary at all. And a little girl looked up at Niobe and said, what's his name? Now Niobe, he hadn't even thought to ask the name. He was going to say something, but at that moment, the monster put up his hoof, waited for everyone to get quiet. He wanted to answer this himself. And he said, I go by many names, but most people call me What Might Happen. Well, the people thought that was a very strange name for a monster. But Myobi, who was well on his path to wisdom, understood and laughed at how foolish he had been. That is the monster that grew small. One of the things I like to ask after telling this story, and we always have really good discussions, so I'm hoping you and the rest of the class can maybe do this if you have time, is answer the question, is there anything that you ever remember in your life that you're really afraid of and didn't want to do and scared you until you did it or came upon it? Could be anything like jumping off a diving board, for instance. Maybe you were afraid of that, and once you did, you said, what was I afraid of? That's the discussion question I'm going to leave you with. I'm hoping this works out well. I'm hoping you can see it. Again, I really miss seeing you all in person. And if you have anything you want to say or record for me, hopefully your teachers will make that possible also, because I would love to hear what you're thinking, what you have to say. And if you have any ideas or want any other kind of stories, I will try to do that maybe before the school year ends. I'm still trying to find that good panda story. Take care.